Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of epic conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. Slow down, Dr. Vibe. 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And in 2023, 2022, and 2021, our team reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers and dads around the world. So, as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Some other stuff about moi, as say en français, moi. I also am a featured content provider on the Fly Nubian Queen Network, YouTube network, which has 570,000 subscribers, and upcoming Indie Soup Media Network with a reach of over 1 million people coming out soon, crossing my fingers. Dr. Tachi, I know you're going to make it happen. So that's a little bit about me. So usually I have a co-host, Ryan Knight. He'll not be able to make it today. So I'm going Han Solo today, all by myself, but some things stay the same. First things first, if you want to subscribe, and a lot of people recently have been subscribing to the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube channel, go to YouTube, put in the Dr. Vibe Show, subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, make sure you follow moi, Dr. Vibe. I'm en français today, on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I host or I'm a part of, please feel free. Email me, dr.vibe@thedrbeshow.com. And finally, want you to join the Discord group, the Morning Vibe Discord group, where we share some extra stuff that either myself, Ryan, or some of our friends that come on the show, they give us some extras, because I know sometimes watching a whole video, you want those nuggets. A lot of times we put it in the Discord group. So email me if you want to become a part of that at dr.vibe@thedrbeshow.com. Some other things. If you want to get in touch with Ryan, even though he's not here today, there's his website address, RyanOneilKnight.com, LinkedIn, Ryan Oneil Knight, Instagram at Ryan.Knight99, and then email workwithme, RyanOneilKnight.com. And just making you aware, his organization, the organization he's the co-executive director or executive director of, the Afro Caribbean Business Network, have a symposium coming up. Is it March? Yeah, March, beginning of March, first Saturday in March. Let me just check. Yeah, March 2nd in Mississauga, greater part of Toronto area. And the guest speaker is Dr. George Fraser. So if you know anything about Dr. George, you may want to get out there, because he's going to make you smarter. Very, very, very much smarter. All right. So just some other things coming up on this Monday's show. I know for some people in Canada, this Monday is a holiday. In Ontario, the province I live in, it's Family Day, but we're going to be on. We are scheduled to have Robert Small, creator of the official Black History Month poster, on, and he's going to give us some insights in regards to Black History Month. And I just want to put out to everyone here, how's your Black History Month so far? We're 16 days in, 12 and a little bit left to go. Have you done anything? What are your thoughts? Is it meaningful still? Would love to get your takes. And I see someone saying, Sylvia Warrington, thank you for favoring. And also in the comment section, please, please, please say hello. Say where you're chiming in from. Would love to hear and give you a shout out on what you are chatting about. So I'm going to get our monthly friend, Ray McMillan, on in just a second. And I see people are chiming in. Let's see who's saying hello. Yes, Your Gray Matters. Loving the show. Thank you, Your Gray Matters. You mentioned this past Monday that you had Ryan on your show. How did that go? I'm very interested to know how it went with Ryan on your show. All right, let's see who else is going to chime in this morning. All right, that is good. So we've got it all set up. Oh, this weekend, I should make you aware. So Saturday evening, I host and co-produce a show called Primetime Saturday with Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key, two wonderful Black American women. And we have actually a special guest this Saturday evening. She's been on this platform. She's been on, what is it? She's been on The Morning Vibe. She's been on another one of the shows I host called Black Canada Talking. But we're going to have her on Saturday evening on Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Why? Because it's also going to broadcast. We're going to get her expertise on data privacy, or in England called data privacy, on the Fly Nubian Queen network. So I want to help people score goals and get wins. So this is going to expose her to a reach of a platform that has 570,000 subscribers. Plus, if you're not doing anything Saturday evening, tune into the Dr. Vibe show. Ask questions about data privacy, because Manifa, and she has a partner in the business. Her partner's name is Susie, her co-partner in the business. They know everything about data privacy, and they know it Canadian perspective, US perspective, European perspective. So I would highly suggest, and if you're following me anywhere, the post is already up, but if you're not, follow me anyways. And if you can, tune in tomorrow night at 7 p.m. You're going to be smarter. I'm using that twice. You're going to be smarter. You're going to get some more insight, especially on data privacy, because there's not too many people that are not doing stuff online these days. And Manifa always sends me updates on hacking. And, there's been a lot of stuff going on about the Canadian government databases or different ministries being hacked or compromised. Here in Toronto a few months ago, the Toronto Public Library, their database got hacked. And I think they were asked to pay a ransom. They didn't pay it. Who knows the long-term implications? So let's go. JJ Mars, hello, chat, and good morning. How are things in Colorado? Would love that temperature. Fitness IQ Cam, KSF EYL RWFQ FM is in the house. And she go, Midahia. All right, good. Hope family as well. And also in Toronto, yesterday, Greater Toronto, we got snow. Yeah, and I know most people who live outside of Canada, well, aren't you? That's what we were taught. You get snow in the winter. Yeah, but we hadn't had snow for the longest of times. Like 2 weeks ago, it was like 50 degrees Fahrenheit in Toronto. And but now the snow is back. Actually, it was interesting. Earlier on this week, I went to a presentation by a gentleman who talked about, let me just tell you here what he talked about. Let me tell you what he talked about. I got to tell you. Yeah, he talked about neuroscience for wellness. And he lives in Hawaii. And he said, oh, it's so cold here. I said, well, if you would have come 2 weeks ago, you probably would have went around in your T-shirt and shorts. But it was a great presentation. So JG Mars says, in Colorado, it's cold and foggy here. What's the temp? All right. What's been going on in your week? What has been going on? Tell me, family. I've had a very positive, productive week. Lots of great things going on. Had a conversation yesterday with a Filipina lady. I won't give her name. She runs one of the biggest multicultural advertising agencies in Canada. And we had an epic conversation, and she's going to be coming on next month to talk about media advertising from an ethnic lens. So it is going to be good. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. Really, really, really excited. So that's one of the many conversations that I've had, epic conversations I've had this week. So it's 25 degrees. Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit colder here today, JJ Mars. I'm going to pull up my weather app and just give you a weather update. Dun, dun, dun. It is, let me just take a look. Actually, it's actually warmer here. It's probably around the same temperature here, -3 degrees Celsius. So it's around the same thing. And we're supposed to be getting some snow in the next 3 hours. So I measure how bad a winter is and how many times I have to shovel my driveway. And I've only had to do it like 3 or 4 times this winter. Yes. So fitness counts as it's been a week. I know it has been for you, but we won't get into that live. Thank you very much. All right. So the third Friday of each month, we have Ray McMillan in the house giving some lens on mortgages, real estate investing, etc. And got a great topic today. I've come with a lot of questions, but I hope you have come with a lot of questions also, the family. So I want to make sure you go hard in the paint in the chat when it comes to questions today. All right. Can I get that from you? Can I get that from you? All right. So let's bring him to the stage. And his camera's not on because we've had some technical difficulties the last few times that Ray's been on with camera. So we went on in the green room early this on and said, this is the best way to do this today, but you will see his face live in the near future. So Ray, good morning. How you doing?
Bonjour, Monsieur Vibe. Comment ça va?
Ça va bien, merci, et vous?
Très bien.
Oh, okay. That's
back
it.
to English now.
That's it.
That's the extent. My mother has been a French. Yeah, my mother's been a French department head for all of her teaching career in many parts of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And her reference to my French, she tells me I speak French like a Spaniard. So you can pick how you, but my French capabilities are limited to reading, right? I read French very well, but I have a very difficult time speaking French. So I lived in St. Lucia for a while. For those, a bit of background with myself. I lived in St. Lucia for a while, and St. Lucia speaks French patois. So I learned French patois very, very well, right? But I never learned to speak proper French, much to my mother's dismay. So up to now, she still tries with me. You should get some French tapes and try to learn French the right way. But, you know, as they say, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So good to be back here, Dr. Vibe. You know, we had a bit of dusting of snow yesterday. You know, it's nice to be here and enjoy a bit of the winter weather. For those who are new to the conversation, my name is Ray McMillan. I am a retired now mortgage broker. I was in the industry, started in 1994-95 as a financial advisor, then moved into the banking environment in the late 90s, and then became an independent mortgage advisor in 1999, to be exact. A few years ago, I transitioned my business to my eldest son, who is actually having a very successful mortgage brokering career. He actually won an award for 2023. He's won consecutive awards in production since 2018, I think. Like every single year, he's won awards in the industry. I spend more of my time today coaching individuals who want to invest in real estate, mentoring my son, and mentoring anybody who's interested in the mortgage industry and in the real estate investment space. I spend a fair amount of time in the US, in Florida to be exact, and more recently in the Caribbean, Guyana, where I'm trying to navigate the real estate space in those places. I've got a bit of knowledge, not a bit, I've got a fair amount of knowledge of real estate in most of the Caribbean, including Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, and St. Lucia. So I've got a pretty diverse knowledge when it comes to real estate. Mortgages and real estate mortgage rates and home buying has been in the news quite a bit over the last year with the interest rates going up. And for many home buyers, there are a lot of questions of how do we buy today? What can we afford to buy? And when individuals come to us and ask, should I buy today or wait? My answer always is, if you have all the necessary variables in place, you've got reasonably good credit score, you've got reasonably good down payment, you have minimal debt or preferably no debt, and you've got good employment. And I mean, good employment is actually a relative term today because we see all the job cuts across the board, many large corporations. But based on your current situation, if all those things are in place, then the best time to buy is today. There's no need to wait. We can't time the market. No need to wait for tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. The challenge we have is that a lot of people don't have all the variables in place. They may have one or two, and they rush into the market. So you see these sad stories all the time where people are, in a crisis. Either they can't afford to pay their mortgage, or they're running into payment problems for whatever reason. But as a principle, this morning I was reading an article of a woman who was up in arms, and there's a whole article in the newspapers with her in Scotiabank. And the article is written in a way where they're trying to get sympathy for the homeowner. But hey, listen to the story, it makes no sense. So she bought a home 2 years ago that was listed for $465,000. She was involved in a multiple bidding scenario. So she paid $200,000 more for the house than it was being listed for. Let me repeat that. She paid $200,000 more for the house than it was listed for. She lost her job 7 months later. Now, by the sounds of it, it sounds like a single person because there's no mention of a spouse. But the market's corrected. It seems as though she had a variable rate mortgage, and now that the rates, the parameters increased a bit over the last couple of years, she has now found herself in a situation where she had to sell the home because she couldn't afford it. Now, the market has pulled back quite a bit, probably 10, 15%. She's in a smaller community, so that was at 465, might be more in that community. So she's now in a situation where she can't sell the home because she paid too much for it, and she can't afford the payments. But the media puts these stories out there so frequently, and they're usually one-off situations, and everybody jumps on the sympathy bandwagon. But I see many flaws in that situation, in her application. I mean, first of all, why would you pay $200,000 more for a house that's worth less than $500,000? In some communities, it has 70,000 people. That's the first error that I see, in my opinion. Then secondly, as a single person, probably working in the tech industry, which, while it pays very well, is one of the most uncertain industries in some regards. I mean, many companies are subbing out their contracts overseas and that sort of stuff. So it depends on your position. It's not necessarily the most secure type of job environment, right? So the mortgage planning part is very, very important. So for those who want to enter the market today as a home buyer, you have to be very prudent in your mortgage planning. The stress test is still in place in Canada. It hasn't gone anywhere, and it's not going to go anywhere. What is the stress test? The stress test is a process that the government introduced to determine how mortgages are qualified in Canada, to basically reduce the risk of people finding themselves in situations like the young woman who just basically bid $200,000 more on a home that was listed at $465,000. The stress test rate is 5.25%. The banks will qualify you, or the lenders, on prime mortgages at 5.25% plus 2%. That is 7.25%. So you have to qualify for a mortgage in Canada at 7.25%, irregardless of what the contract rate is for that mortgage. So when you sit down with your mortgage advisor or your banker, you want to make sure that your mortgage payments, including your property taxes, utilities, condo fees, if applicable, are around 32% of your gross income. If it's a bit more than that, and you've got additional debt, you could find yourself in a problem. Some lenders are removing some of the debt ratio qualifications and pushing it as high as 44%. Now, what you have to remember is that they're qualifying you for a mortgage based on your gross income. And if the higher income is in Ontario and Canada, for those who live in Canada, the higher is your marginal tax rate. So if you're making $120,000 a year, your tax rate is somewhere like around 35% of your income is gone in provincial and federal taxes. If you live in some parts of the US, there's no state tax. There's no state tax in Florida. So you're only paying federal taxes. But here in Canada, we're probably one of the highest tax countries in the world. So lenders are qualifying you on your gross income, but you're paying your debt and your mortgage payments on your net income. So it's important for you to really sit down with an advisor and look at what goes into my account when the dust settles and what is left after I finish paying my life insurance, car payments if you have those, my child care, and all the other expenses we have that are not going to go away when you buy the home, that may actually increase depending on how far you move away from the GTA to afford the home. So it's imperative today, if you don't want to find yourself in this young woman's situation where you buy a house and then 2 years later, you're trying to figure out, how do I keep this property?
Wow. Wow. What, like, there is so many things to ask about what you've just shared with us there in regards to that situation. And what we're going to, well, we're going to take a break and then come back, because there's things I want to ask about that situation from your lens. And also, there are a lot of people here watching live. Bring the questions. Look at that situation. Lady bought a house 2 years ago, $200,000 over what it was worth. That's a question in itself. And then she eventually has to leave it because uncertainty. So we're going to come back. Let's just catch one comment. Yeah, so 2 comments here from Fitness IQ Cam says, wow. Unique Russell says, wow. Is that the lady you told me about, Ray?
That is correct. Yannick, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, Yannick is an attorney. She specializes in immigration and estate law. Very, very good. We had a lengthy conversation yesterday. Quite an entrepreneur also. So thanks, Yannick, for tuning in. And I did mention your name to Dr. Vibe, and he is going to have a conversation with you sometime in the very near future.
Yeah, would love to have you on, because anyone who Ray recommends or suggests to me, that's a no-brainer to have the platform. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick little break, and we're going to come back. And then if you have questions, I've got a pile of questions for Ray, but more importantly, you should have a pile of questions about, future for home buyers and real estate investors on the Morning Vibe. We're really excited to have Ray on, as always, and all of you are, because we get a lot of people coming on when Ray is in the house. So keep it locked. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that, don't always represent the best of us, the diversity, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like, everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. You know, a lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back, you know, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
Okay, we are back. As always, big ups to Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins, supporters of this platform, and also we support them big time. So we are here today with Ray McMillan, and we are chatting about today, as I pull it up on the screen, how to navigate the future as a home buyer or as a real estate investor. We have some more comments. Fitness IQ Camp says, that's so scary. And Unique says, yes, my pleasure, Raymond. I am learning so much. Thank you. Keep the comments coming. So Ray, based on what you said, one of my first conversation pieces is, what has the post-pandemic, how much impact is it having on the future of the real estate market? Because yeah, the pandemic is somewhat over, though I was speaking with someone yesterday who has COVID and is like quarantined, but is there still a residual effect of the pandemic on what's going on with today and the future real estate market?
Yes. What happened during the pandemic is that many people left the large cities. So many people who couldn't afford to buy homes in major urban centers because of the cost, and that's across North America, where these cities and buy homes in smaller communities or even further away from major urban. Like in the U.S., for example, many people left New York City and moved into the Carolinas or into Virginia or into Texas, and they were able to work remotely. What is beginning to happen is that these corporations are now requesting hybrid employment situations. So if you move 2 hours away from your employer, how are you going to work in a hybrid environment? So people are now having to sell these homes and come back into proximity of their employment, right? Now, if you were renting before you bought your home in some small community, you will find yourself unable to find a similar living environment today at the price that you were paying for it before you moved. I mean, let's say you were living in an apartment in Toronto. They rented back in 2010, and you never moved to that apartment. You're in the same building, somewhere in Mississauga, Scarborough, anywhere. You're probably paying $1,200, $1,400 a month in rent, right? But if you move from that apartment and you try to come back into that same apartment 2.5 or 3 years later, that rent has now gone from $1,400 to $2,300. Much has changed in your life regarding your income, then your affordability to remigrate back into major urban centers. So you've got no homes being sold that were bought at high prices because they're involved in all these bidding wars during the pandemic. Because there was a lot of emotion during the pandemic. I mean, what you have to realize is that most home buyers buy real estate using emotion. It's always they fell in love with a home, right? And I mean, the case in point is the person who bid $200,000 above on a house that's worth less than $500,000. I mean, so it couldn't be anything special. It's not an estate house. It's not a mini mansion. It's not a mansion. It's not sitting on 4.5 acres with a pond in the backyard. This has to be a very basic home. And that just shows you very clearly the level of emotion involved in that process. So those emotional buyers who left these large cities and moved out 2 hours away, 3 hours away, and then bought their property are now being forced to come back. And the builders started to build during the pandemic. All across North America. It happened in Florida, it happened in Georgia, and now the houses are being sold. In many cases, at the same price they were bought for, or less than they were bought for. So you've got all these properties in the market, that they're trying to sell to qualify as 7.25%. A 30-year mortgage in the US is 7.05%. The 15-year mortgage is around 5.5%. So the qualification now is much higher than it was from 4%, 5%. In the US, around 3%. So the affordability has pushed many people back into that rental space. So what is the solution? The solution is multi-generational housing. That is probably the solution. And can that be done in suburban environments? It probably can be if the homes are large enough, but it can be more done in an urban environment where you get into the duplexes, the small multiplex homes, and you have 3 generations of family living in the same home. And that will probably be able to counter the situation that many people have found themselves in. Now, in some cultures, multi-generational living is very, very normal, easily accepted. In some cultures, it's not. Now, but it is probably the only way going forward where young people can afford to get into the real estate market without having to pay half of their income towards their housing costs.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I love how you said before we went on the break about people not realizing their gross and then what money do they have left over to pay for house expenses after their gross. Are you still seeing a lot of people making that mistake?
Yes. I mean, what many home buyers do, and even some real estate investors, before they sit down with a mortgage professional, they go out and call a realtor. The realtor's job is to find you a property, not to qualify you for a mortgage. And I know a lot of great realtors all across North America and the Caribbean. Their role is to find you the right property, whether it's a home, to live in, or it's an investment property that you're going to have tenants in. Their job is not to figure whether or not you can afford this home or whether the cash flow is right or all that stuff. So you want to, your first conversation, the first thing you should do is get a copy of your Equifax report. That's the first step, right? You want to go online and get a copy of your TransUnion and Equifax to make sure there's nothing there that's going to surprise you. And you put your application in and your credit score is reasonable. And by reasonable, I mean 680 or higher. 720 or higher is even better. So if your credit score is around 640, 620, then put it on pause for the time being, deal with your credit issues, because that's going to present a major challenge for you. Anything you try to buy today in North America, right? First, then you want to start your mortgage advisor. Get all your income sources. We know what to ask you for, right? If their child tax credits here in Canada, some lenders take them, some lenders don't. So when you speak to the mortgage professional, people ask you, do you have children? How old are the children? Is there a child tax credit? Are you single, married, divorced? If you're divorced and you've got children, is there support being paid? How much is support? I mean, so there's a lot of sources of income you can use to qualify you. Now, we have to be also cognizant that if you are divorced and your child is 17 years old and your support is going to get $1,000 a month, it's going to stop in the next year. So it'd be very difficult to qualify for $1 million mortgage today, expect needing that $1,000 a month to pay your mortgage when your child turns 18 next year and the support is going to stop, right? That $1,000 is gone. It's not coming back, right? So in having that conversation with a mortgage advisor, we point out those things to you. So we can't use this $12,000 a year because it's not going to be around for the next 5 years, unless your income is going to increase by $12,000 a year to offset that shortfall, right? But yeah, the planning is critical, and we have to make that first conversation be with the mortgage advisor as opposed to the real estate professional. And short answer to your question, yes, there's still quite a few people making that mistake. Hence the reason when you turn the news on, you see the stories of people losing their homes or being in a problem making the payments, because in many cases, those are the individuals who made a rushed emotional purchase and didn't take the time to sit down, have the family conversation with a spouse or a partner, go through the income sources, get a clear understanding of what the debts and liabilities are before they made the offer, and got all excited when they saw the new home. The other challenge we have is people buying new homes that are closing 2 years into the future and hoping that the value would increase significantly, but they didn't take the time to get a proper mortgage approval, or they got one that was 2.5 or 3 years old at a much lower rate. And then they ended up now in a situation where the rates have increased and the pre-approval that they got 2 years ago is no longer valid. The value didn't increase as they expected to increase, and they found themselves stuck in a very precarious situation where they can't get the deal closed. And you can't really sell it to anybody else because, you know, the market has changed a lot in the last 2 years.
All right. Good stuff. Yannick says, thank you, Dr. Vibe. It would be a privilege to share with your viewers. We're looking forward to it, Yannick. We're looking forward to it. IPV ADDT says, it's important to have a good mortgage agent who will be honest with you about where you stand in getting a mortgage loan. Also, one who is honest about whether or not you can afford the mortgage. Absolutely. Actually, that leads to a good question, Ray. How does the average person know if someone they want to buy a home with or help them with real estate investment? How do they know that person's credible? Like you have your son, hey, trust him 150%, but how can people know the person that's helping them is credible?
And that's a very good question, Dr. White. The industry has a lot of challenges, both sides of the border. The entry into the mortgage profession is very easy. It's a very basic 2-hour exam. You get your license and go out and give people advice. As I mentioned earlier, my journey was different. I came, first of all, I'm university educated, right? I've got an undergrad degree. I've done several courses over the years. I've worked for major investments and insurance companies. I've worked for a major bank, and anybody who works for a bank will let you know that the banks train their staff very, very well. I did mortgage courses on default management going back to the 90s for the bank that I worked with. And then I got licensed. But along the way, I got mentored by many, many very good individuals. But the first step, I think, is to get a referral, right? You find a referral, you speak to somebody. A lot of my referrals have come from lawyers that we've worked with over the years. So when a lawyer gives you a referral, you know you're credible, because lawyers don't normally refer anybody to anyone. They protect their integrity at a very, very high level. A lot of our referrals came from lawyers, financial advisors. So my referrals came from people who, if we didn't do what we were supposed to do properly, it affected their credibility also. So we didn't get referrals from existing clients. We got referrals from professionals who had something to lose. And I always tell my son, I said, be very careful dealing with people who have nothing to lose in life, because then they will do anything for $1. So when you come into our office, if you have nothing to lose, I ask a lot of questions like, what do you do? What's your family situation? Is there a spouse involved? Do you have children? But I'm trying to figure out, if I deal with you, what kind of dealings are we going to have? And it's the same way with a more professional. You meet somebody, you interview them, right? You ask them questions. How long have you been in the business? Do you have a mentor? Do you work as part of a team? What type of mortgages do you specialize in? Because if you do commercial mortgages, then you're not necessarily equipped to do it first-time home buyers, because the two things are very, very different, right? So you want to ask the questions and get a sense. And then you go online. Do you have a website? Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have a Google profile? Go look at your reviews and see what the conversation has been. If you've been in business for 5 years and you have no online reviews, then in today's environment, that's a bit of a red flag for me, right? And I don't care if you have bad reviews, because sometimes bad reviews can be malicious. So if you've got 10 reviews and 2 of them are bad and the other 8 are reasonably well or very good, then sometimes it's just that yourself and this person didn't click for whatever reason, and out of malice they give you a bad review. It happens all the time. So I'm not going to take that one bad review and those 2 bad reviews and say, oh, this person's an idiot. I'm not going to deal with them. I think we're intelligent enough to do the analysis to see, okay, these 2 reviews don't make any sense based on these 8. So I'm going to give this person a chance. Let's have a conversation. But I think it's very important that you ask a lot of questions, you know, and then you can go online, go to the official website, see if there's any complaints against that person, you know, and that sort of stuff. But it is very difficult, you know, because the industry is one where, you know, as I said, I've been licensed as an insurance advisor and a financial advisor going back to the 90s. And the mortgage licensing process of all of those 3 industries is the easiest. The ongoing education is nowhere close to what you need to do to be a financial advisor. And anybody who's in that industry can attest to that. Like the ongoing education in the insurance or financial services industry is in the mortgage brokerage industry. And they're trying to change it, right? But yes, ask for the referrals and ask a lot of questions. Okay. That's simple.
All right. All right. All right. So people, ask questions. Come on now. Come on now. So IPV ADDT says many people want a home but cannot afford to pay the loan. You cannot be, I don't want this long, you cannot be long eye if you want to and want to live beyond your, live above your means. A great mortgage agent will take you through the process and give you the blunt advice. I like that, the blunt advice. Keep the comments coming, family. So Ray, I got another conversation piece because I've come loaded up today. We live in a world of technology. We can't avoid it anymore. How can a home buyer or a real estate investor going forward use technology for their advantage?
Oh, definitely. I mean, technology gives you access to information, right? The key with the information is, do you understand the information? I mean, as an investor, I mean, as you know, we have property outside of Canada. I have done some transactions in Guyana, done some stuff in Barbados and Jamaica. In today's environment, it's very easy to go online and quickly determine what a property is worth. Take a look at the location and to see if the environment is one that you want to buy a property. Like, let's say, for example, you found a property in Wisconsin, right? Green Bay, or somewhere in Illinois, and it's a 6-family home for $95,000. For a Canadian, that sounds like an amazing deal. You know, I've got 6 apartments in there. It's $95,000 US. Before you go any further, you get the address, plug it into Google Maps, pull up the street view, go to realtor.com or Zillow, key in the marginal rents, pull up the actual neighborhood, do the search in the crime stats, and the information is all there. So in less than probably a minute, you can determine whether this $95,000 property that is a 2-hour plane ride from where you live is actually a worthwhile investment or a holy nightmare. And many people hear about these great deals all over the place, you know, whether it's Newfoundland, whether it's in Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie or Chicago or wherever, without understanding what they're getting into. And if you can't afford to buy a plane ticket along with your online activity, jump in a plane and walk the neighborhood. We bought property in Florida, and 95% of my research is done online. Where I'm so good today, I can look at the property, look at the price, look at the address, the zip code, and I can tell you in 15 seconds whether I should go any deeper in that property or just go past it, right? And it comes with practice. I mean, if you want to invest in real estate, you should be looking at about probably 20 or 25 properties per day. You can't be an investor and the first property you see, you jump on it. You might get lucky, but 9 or 10 times, you lose a lot of money. So I go through, I get about probably 25 property suggestions every single day from the sites that I follow based on my search criteria, right? And you have to determine what your search criteria is, what your budget is, what your tenant is going to be. And that's probably the most important part. What type of tenant do you plan to have in your property? And a lot of that can be done online. You look at the city and you see, okay, what kind of jobs are in that city? Is there a base in that city? Are there any new warehouses coming to the city? What kind of construction is taking place? What kind of major projects are taking place? And all this information can be found online. So, but you got to take the time. If you're not spending 4 hours a day, if you plan to invest in real estate at a serious level, get to a place where you own 20 or 25 units over a 5 or 6 year period, you should be spending about 4 hours a day online doing your research. If you're not doing that, then I don't think you're going to be very, very successful. And like buying a home to live in, the way you qualify for your rental property, you've got to be very, very stringent. You've got to work your numbers out very carefully. That property is going to need work. If the home is 40 years old and the roof is 15 years old, at some point you're going to have to get a new roof for that property. And that's going to cost you $25,000 or $28,000. So if your cash was $200 a month, but you need a roof in a year and a half from now, how are you going to pay for the roof? There's no reserve fund to pay for your roof. There's no money in this property, right? So either you negotiate with the vendor to give you a credit to fix the roof. They fix the roof and probably change the price of the house by $10,000, because that now makes more sense now, because putting this additional $10,000 over 25 or 30 years, right? But buying a home that needs a roof in 2 years doesn't make any sense, because you have to do that expense yourself. You know what I mean? So my number per unit when it comes to cash flow is probably around $500 a month after all expenses are paid, minimum, because it doesn't make sense beyond that. If you've got 10 doors or 10 units, five times 10 is $5,000 a month, which is you running a business. Between that income from your rent after expenses plus your appreciation, you should be doing about $7,000 or $8,000 a month if you have 10 small units. And I'm talking properties that are worth less than $100,000, right? If your property is worth $300,000 or $400,000, then your cash flow per unit should be about $1,000 minimum. And many investors don't look at that. They look at the fact, okay, I can buy it, I can rent it. And we would ask clients, well, what's your net after expenses? And the only expense that they can think of is mortgage payments, property taxes, and home insurance. But what about maintenance? What about when the tenant moves out? You got to go in there, replace the appliances, paint the entire place over, put in a new carpet, and probably change the laminate in the family room. Did you prepare for that cost? So what you find happening many times is real estate investors using their credit cards or the lines of credit because there's no business plan for the investment process. So you'll always find yourself in problems.
Good stuff, Ray. Good stuff. Okay, we got IPV ad T. That's what I'm going to just say. IPV ad T saying, great discussion this morning, Dr. Vibe. Well, it's Ray and Dr. Vibe, not just Dr. Vibe. Ray and Dr. Vibe. Hit the like button, everyone. I agree. Thank you. Naleen Prasad says, I say be careful who you listen to on social media also. Not everyone, quote, appears, unquote, to be an expert on Instagram, but may not have the knowledge to be speaking on certain topics. Absolutely. And also, Opal Inspired, follow her on YouTube. Good morning, Ray. She has a question. What are your thoughts on REITs?
Which is an easy way to participate in the investment income from large investment projects. But anything else, you've got to do your research. You've got to get copies of the prospectus, get an idea what kind of projects they're doing, where they're doing them, I mean, REITs can be investing all across the world. They can be investing in Mexico. They can be doing beachfront condos in Puerto Rico. They can be investing in condos in Tampa, Toronto. What kind of projects have they done? How fast have they scaled their valuations in terms of the kind of money they're asking for? Have they closed any projects? How have those been managed? Have they closed and sold them? Lots and lots of stuff. I've been approached by an individual who was encouraged me to get involved in starting a REIT. I am not really interested in managing anybody's investment money. It's a huge responsibility, but I mean, it's an easy way to get into the investment space. Most REITs, I think they ask for a $10,000 investment. There's usually like a 5-year timeline to getting your money back. If it's something that you are comfortable with, then yes. I am more a hands-on investor. I like to analyze my neighborhoods, analyze my real estate, and I want immediate cash flow, right? And finding the right real estate property in the right location with the right tenant does that very, very easily. I am not keen on having too many other people control my finances, and that's just me personally. But I mean, if you don't have the ability to manage a real estate portfolio yourself and look for property, then investing in the REIT is a great alternative. I mean, any type of investment is a great alternative once you've done your research. Whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's the stock market, mutual funds, EFTs, just do your homework first. Speak to an advisor who specializes in whatever you're trying to invest in before you make the decision.
Yeah, thanks for that big time. Want to shout out Dr. Tachi, host and producer of the livest online show about media, tech, and pop culture called Mediascope. That's on Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram, and then 6 p.m. on Wednesdays on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, LinkedIn, and other platforms. So always good to have Dr. Tachi in the house. JG Mars agrees with you, saying it's always better to control your own investments if possible. Absolutely. And also want to shout out Christy White, who has liked this conversation on Facebook. And yes, everyone, like the conversation. It helps with the algorithms. And also, if you're not, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Please do that. And program alert. If you're watching this live on February 16th, 2024 at 11 o'clock Eastern time, I'm going to be hosting a conversation, a short one, live with Canada's Minister of Diversity, Kamal Kara. So if you're around 11 o'clock this morning Eastern time, having a quick conversation with the minister. So Ray, I want to come back. And I think you may have mentioned this indirectly.
Before you go ahead, Dr. Vibe, I want to address the comment. Before you ask your comment, I want to address the comment by JJ Mars. When I say do it yourself, I don't mean do it yourself. You want to have a team around you. Like I've got two very good colleagues who are accountants. Between the two of them, they've got about 7 years of experience. I've got very good colleagues who are very good lawyers, real estate lawyers. I've got colleagues who are home inspectors, the best in the country. When it talks about mold and structural issues. I've worked with real estate appraisal companies for many, many years. So when I get an appraisal on the property, I can call them and get an in-depth analysis on this appraisal that the average person wouldn't get. So doing it yourself doesn't mean I am doing everything, right? So you want to go and build that team of the right professionals. I also have very good realtors, whether it's a realtor in Guyana, a realtor in Jamaica, a realtor in Florida, a realtor in Barbados, who knows the market. They've got 10, 15, 20 years of ability under their belt, you know what I mean? So it's not me just trying to figure out all this stuff alone. Like I'm in the wilderness, I can pick up the phone and in 30 seconds get a very quick analysis of whether this market makes sense, this property makes sense. Like in many parts of the southern part of the US, houses are built on cinder blocks. For those who live in Canada, they have no clue what cinder blocks are. But if you move to Vancouver, if you move to the East Coast, Newfoundland, those places, you know what cinder blocks are. But if you're in the GTA, Cinder blocks. So if you tell somebody in Toronto that you're buying a property and it's in cinder blocks, they don't understand that concept, right? So the inspector that you use has to understand you got to go under there, check the support beams to the house because the house is raised off the ground about 6 inches to 12 inches and it's moisture under there. All your support beams under there can get rotted. The house may look nice, but when you walk in the house inside, it's like it's got that bounce, like you're on a mattress walking, it's spongy, right? But it has a beautiful kitchen, nice bathroom, but you've got this weird feeling. So if your realtor is not familiar with houses built on cinder blocks, and you don't know anything either, and there's no inspection, you end up buying a property that within probably 2 years, you have to put the entire floor in and replace all the beams in the house. It's like building a whole new house. So it's important to have the team so that you have people who are well equipped with the knowledge and abilities to make your investment journey successful and easy. I just want to clarify that for JJ Mars.
Yep.
So it's not being a jack of all trades and doing it by yourself.
Got it.
Sorry,
So,
I interrupted your comment.
No.
I apologize.
No. This is your conversation. I'm just steering the ship. You're driving the ship. And JG Mars agrees with you. He says, yes, a team of trusted advisors. So we're good. Okay. Opal Inspired also says, thanks, Ray, for your answer about the REITs. Also, Teach and Inspire, good morning. Good to have you here. We're having another epic conversation with Ray McMillan. So definitely, and I've put his contact information on the screen a few times. I've also sent it out on most of the platforms you are watching this live on the replay. And yes, he will speak with people. I won't get into details, but there's a lady who is behind a significant investment in Jamaica who lives here. And Ray spent a lot of good quality time with her, and he's offering to give his lens on it. And she is forever grateful about that conversation. So you can call him or contact him, and do tell him you saw him on this show, because he won't know who you are from Adam. Or if you want, reach out to me and I can get you in contact with him. Ray, another thing I want to ask about is risk and reward when it comes to real estate investing, especially in this market and going forward. How has that changed, and what should people be considering when it comes to risk and reward when it comes to real estate investing?
Our last conversation spoke with investment risk. So if you go back and listen to the last 45 minutes last month, we spoke extensively on the types of risk. So as an investor, you have to, first of all, understand what you're getting involved in, right? Now, many people investment property in much the same way they buy their principal residence. And that is one of the fundamental mistakes many novice investors make, right? The house you live in is not ideal for investment purposes. So many times people want to have high-end clients. Well, 1% of North America has an income above $250,000 a year. So if you want a high-end tenant, that's a very, very small gene pool, very basic people. Most of them are people who can't afford to buy homes themselves. So the first thing you've got to understand is your tenant risk and determine who your tenant is. First thing. Next thing is what kind of property you want to buy. Am I buying a one-bedroom condo? Am I buying a student rental? Because each of those comes with different inherent risks, right? And I don't think enough people take the time to understand that. Then your personality, are you the kind of person who is able to deal with tenants and their challenges? Or do you want a hands-off approach and hand it on to a property management company? Then there's interest rate risk, which we all experiencing today. For the last 15 years, where rates are below 5%, and then suddenly it spiked up. Are you prepared for those changes? In the US and in the US, where rates are usually for 30-year period or 15-year period, 25-year period, the risk is not as profound. So most people will write it out. But in Canada, when most people have a 5-year mortgage, whether it's fixed or adjustable, at some point you will deal with interest rate risk. So your planning has to be very, very on point, right? And when I do my analysis for my personal properties, we use an interest rate of 2% above whatever the rates are being advertised, because I know that if I have to refinance in the future to take equity out or do any renovations or if I sell to buy another property, then there's a possibility that my rate can go up, right? So we want to make sure that we understand all the risks. And there are about 6 risks that are very, very important when you want to become a real estate investor. There's neighborhood risk, right? Are you buying a property in an area that is crime-ridden? There's the real estate risk in itself, and you avoid the real estate risk by getting a home inspection done and getting an appraisal done. Is the value reasonable for the neighborhood, or is it something that they came up with out of the blues? In many parts of the Caribbean, people sell properties based on what they think it's worth. When you ask them, well, how you come to this valuation? Oh, well, that's what I want for it. Well, what's the house down the road worth? I don't know. Right? It's a little different in North America. We look at price per square foot. So if you look at any city in North America, you can go into any postal code or zip code and check and see what's the median price per square foot, what is the average price per square foot. And that will give you a pretty good idea if what you are paying for your property is reasonable, right? In some parts of the US, some zip codes prices are $75 a square foot. In other parts, it's $120 a square foot. In parts of the GTA, it's probably $1,200 a square foot, right? In Halifax, it's probably $250 a square foot. So you need to understand what your price per square foot is to determine whether your price. Next thing is age of homes. Is the home 50 years old? Is the home 75 years old? The older the home, there will be necessary maintenance required, probably in the very near future, if it's not a total rebuild. So those are many of the risks that you run into as an investor. That's why the journey for successful real estate investing is not overnight. You're going to make a few mistakes, and it might take you a year before you buy your first property. I mean, we've worked with clients who took them 2 years to buy their first property. There's no rush. So if you're working with a team and they rush you into these properties, then no, you step back and try to, understand exactly what you're getting involved in. Because while it's easy to buy the property, it's not always easy to sell it. And many times there's a cost to liquidating real estate. There could be a tax liability. There's real estate fees to the realtor. There's breaking the mortgage. So if you buy the wrong property, you can erode 10% of your equity or more in some cases if you're forced to sell it prematurely because you made the wrong choice.
All right, good question. A question from IPV ADT. Has the housing market for home buying slowed down, or are there more folks buying this season?
A few days ago, I was talking to my son, and I was telling him a lot of the articles you see across the media are very generalized articles, right? They speak of the housing market en masse. Activity can change from neighborhood to neighborhood, right? So in certain parts of Peel, they're active markets. In other parts of Peel, they're very quiet markets. Right now, if you're looking at 70 detached homes in any part of Peel, between $600,000 to $800,000 asking price, that's a very active market, because for most younger families who are making combined, $170,000, $150,000 a year, if they've got a gift from their parents, so they've got very good credit and no debt, it's an easy in, right? So there are certain neighborhoods right across Ontario where you've got a lot of houses in that price range. Then you've got houses that are now in the $2.5, $2.6 million price range. So that neighborhood may have less activity. So it all depends on what you're buying and where you're buying it. In the US, it's the same thing. Prices in New York and prices in the DMV are very, very different. Prices in the Carolinas and prices in Tampa are very different. Prices in Orlando are different. So as with anything, you want to find a realtor who understands the market that you're trying to buy in and give you the analysis. The information is all there. Like, what is the time to market? How long are homes being taken to sell? Are they selling below or above asking price? Are these falling apart before they close? That happens sometimes also, where you've got a lot of activity, but the deals aren't closing. I mean, there's one city in the U.S. that I analyze where you see properties coming back on the market every week. That means they're not closing. So there's something wrong there. Either the potential buyers aren't being qualified properly, or the properties are older and they're not being appraised for the value that they think they should be appraised for, or they aren't passing the inspection, or the tenants don't want to move. There's always some reason why deals don't close, right? But yeah, each market is different. Each neighborhood is different. So there's not a broad analysis. You got to deep dive into that particular postal code, and then even closer into the particular neighborhood that you want to get involved in, and then see what's happening in that neighborhood. Don't get into the bidding wars. Even in a hot market, I am not advising anybody to get into bidding wars. I mean, there's always a deal out there for the right person at the right time. And I've never advised anybody to get into a bidding war because they have to have this property. Now, if the property is way below market value and it's got potential upside, or it's a buy and flip, and you work your numbers out and you want to pay $50,000, okay, you're going to make $500,000 in the back end. That's a little different, but that's not for the novice investor. That's for why you understand the market very, very clearly, and it's much more sophisticated.
All right, good stuff. Got some other people chiming in. Charmaine Hussey, First Lady of ACBN, great information. And she says her family is good. Yes, we're good on our end too. Ray, I want to ask also, for the future real estate investor, how important is knowing rules and regulations? Because the novice investor ain't going to know anything about that. How can they, navigate the rules and regulations when it comes to being a real estate investor?
Well, I mean, there's no real rules as an investor, no real rules as a real estate investor. Where the rules and regulations is understand the Landlord and Tenancy Act. That's what you need to understand. I know this is a hot button subject for a lot of Ontario investors. I mean, Ontario is tenant friendly. Most of Canada is tenant friendly. Parts of the US aren't as tenant friendly. So as an investor, I don't want to invest in real estate in any tenant friendly environment, because that tenant is going to carry you, drag you through the ringer if they run into a problem in their life and you can't get them out of your home, right? So that's what you need to understand. So before you get into buying investment real estate, you need to really understand the Landlord Tenancy Act and regulations in whichever state, province, or municipality you're buying real estate in. And, what is the eviction? What are the eviction guidelines? If that person doesn't pay you rent for 2 months, can you evict them in 3 days, or does it take 90 days? Like, those are the things you want to understand. And I don't think many real estate investors, particularly new ones, spend the time to do that. So when they run into a problem with a bad tenant, and I say a bad tenant, it should be a good tenant in a bad situation. I don't think they're bad tenants. Everybody rents your place in good faith, but life happens. They get divorced, their spouse dies, they lose their job. Stuff happens to people, and then it becomes a bad situation. And that's where I mentioned earlier, you have the personality to deal with your tenant, because what happens if people find themselves in financial constraints, they get defensive and aggressive at the same time, because they're in an awkward situation. So the communication now becomes very, very challenging. So you have to learn how to communicate to your tenant to get the best end result. Because what you don't want to happen is that you have a tenant in a bad situation in your property. You end up in a confrontational situation, and then they damage your property. Right? Now you've got thousands of dollars of repairs to do because the conversation became an argument. Right? So for any person getting involved in real estate investing, understand the rules and guidelines in your province, state, city. If you invest in condominiums, understand the condo rules. Many condominiums limit how many rental units that they can have in a high-rise condo. They've got specific rules in the condominium. Some condos, I know particularly in the US, the actual condo board interviews the tenants before they can actually sign off on their lease and take possession of the unit. So to understand those things very clearly. Some condos, you can't rent the unit. So you can buy a condo for renter purposes, right? Go about find your tenant, move your tenant in, and then the condo board at HOA tells you, I'm sorry, you don't want tenants in here. But at that point, what are you going to do? Right? You know, have to get the tenant out. That becomes a challenge. And then if you don't plan to live in the unit or have a child live in the unit, you have to now try and sell the unit, most likely at a loss. So understand state laws, provincial laws, municipal laws regarding Landlord Tenancy Act. I mean, for me, I always tell people, I don't want tenants with high credit scores and fancy jobs. I want those whose rents are paid by the city, the province, or the state. Simple. I don't care what your profession is. I don't care what your credit score is. That's not important to me because, I mean, you can be making $200,000 yesterday and be unemployed tomorrow. But if you are on welfare, Section 8, you're on disability, and you've got a check coming from the city of Hamilton, you know, city of Jacksonville, I'm good. You know what I mean? Once my place is overcrowded, you know, it says you and one child, you and your husband. When I come there to see you, see your husband, all is well. I'm not worried about it. So I'm not interested in no high net worth tenant or none of that stuff. A lot of people talking that kind of stuff. I want a high net worth tenant. I want a high credit score tenant or high income tenant. Nah, that's a very, very small part of the rental pool. Very, very small percentage.
Yeah, because the majority of the population doesn't make that kind of money anyways, that high value money. So that's, you want to deal with the masses. So it makes a lot of sense. Let me ask, as we start winding the conversation down, where do you see going forward for the real estate investor, the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities?
Depends on where you are. So in a big city like Toronto, New York, Miami, it's finding great deals that can cash flow. You got to do a lot of work. You got to meet a lot of people. You got to find older investors. I mean, people want to retire, get rid of their properties, start selling them off. You know, meet those kind of people. They want to sell it, part of their portfolio. Yeah, you got to put a lot of work in. Opportunities are all over, right? With the right research, opportunities are there. Remember, each city has its own pulse, has its own need in that market. So you have to spend the time to understand it. Like, there's an article a few days ago about a Canadian investor who bought, I think, 1,000 properties in Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury and that kind of stuff, and they want to lose all of them, single-family homes. And you wonder how it happened. Well, it's easy, right? You bought a large amount of real estate in some very, very small cities. That's a very homogeneous population. They're all the same. And it's not a migrant route. That's why you move to Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie looking for a job. The people who live there, I mean, they're mining communities. So that's a very small sector, right? Now, you move to somewhere where you move to Hamilton, for example, right? Hamilton is probably one of the best real estate investment markets in Canada because it has huge medical research facilities. It's got technology. It's kind of halfway between Toronto and Niagara Falls. It's underwater. You know, it has an interesting downtown core, and there are many multifamily homes, smaller multifamily, right? And it's a city where you can move from Toronto, drive half an hour, 45 minutes, and your housing cost drops by 70% in some cases, right? Your buying price can drop by 70%, 50%, right? So, you know, there are opportunities, but you've got to put the work in. Most investors are lazy. That's their challenge. They're lazy. They want to have a quick fix. I mean, they watch all these TV shows, fix and flip, buy with this person, that person, HDTV shows. That's not real. That's TV. It's not as sexy, it's not as easy, right? I mean, I've had nightmare tenants, right? I mean, they had an investment property in Hamilton where the guy had a dog in the house as big as a horse and used to eat the door frames, right? You know what I mean? I mean, I've been involved in projects where we do construction, half the house caved in. Right?
Oh gosh.
You know, but there's opportunity everywhere, right? You have to prepare yourself for the opportunity. And the most important thing is not having debt. And I always keep saying that. If you have debt, then you should be buying a house. You should be getting involved in investment real estate. You have to have debt. And as an investor, you have to have money. Because you can take possession of the property. You buy a fourplex. You take possession, and then you need to replace some of the appliances because they stop working. Or you need to do some electrical work because the electrical system is not up to code or can't support the load of the appliances in the property. You know what I mean? Or you've got to change some windows because there's a draft in some of the bedrooms. So you have to have money to do those things or negotiate with a vendor to give you a credit for that stuff. You know, so there's still gotta take your time. You can't rush into it.
Yeah, got it. Richard S says, good morning, gentlemen. Hopefully you're going to catch the replay. You're coming a little bit late. Dr. Tachi says, yes, so many people don't know how to properly take care of dogs. Filthy. Oh,
this was a big dog. This was like a small pony.
So
different kind of dog, man.
So Ray, what do you see when it comes to the real estate investor market for the rest of the year? And and everything can always change, but what are you seeing for the rest of 2024 when it comes to the marketplace for real estate investors?
From where I see the opportunity, because of the increase in mortgage rates over the last year, many people who have been first-time home buyers are renting for a longer period of time. If you can find older homes that you can convert into a 3-family unit, the old back split, side split homes, you find yourself a small duplex, there's opportunity. But you have to do your numbers, right? You have to look at what your low end of the rent is, what your high end of the rent is. You got to look and see what are your vacancies in this particular neighborhood, right? Are there any jobs coming here? Is there a new wing in the hospital coming? Are they planning to put a new faculty in this university? Is Amazon going to bring a facility here? And so if those things are happening in your neighborhood, you know, the infrastructure is there, you're close to a major port. Because anybody who's close to any port city, there's always opportunity for investing in real estate. Because people come to those places looking for jobs all the time. And those jobs are usually average paying jobs. And because they're quote unquote transient people, they're always going to be renters. So I think there's tremendous opportunity. You know, the ban on foreign students for the next 2 years is going to put a bit of a strain on people who have invested in student rentals. And in some markets across Ontario, across the entire country, there have been tremendous investments in student rentals. People have actually purpose-built student rental condos in parts of Durham, parts of Kitchener, that sort of stuff, Kitchener, Cambridge. So, I mean, the good thing about those properties is that they can be repurposed for regular rentals, right? Because there are no rental vacancies, right? I mean, it's probably like 1% rental vacancies or somewhere less than that. So, I mean, that's the good thing. But for the people who have invested a lot of money and converted homes into student rentals, you don't have to incur the cost of converting those homes back to regular rentals. That may cost them a few $1,000s to do it. But the upside is that the rents that they can ask for should cover any funds that they spend. So, but I think it's a good time to be a landlord, right? And if you are open to other markets outside of your 5-kilometer radius, there's tons of opportunity. Most people tend to want to invest in their local neighborhood at areas that they're familiar with. But go out there, educate yourself about cities, and see what it's like. And as we said earlier, with the access to digital information, you can do your research while lying in bed on Sunday morning with your partner. Just pull up your laptop, just type things in. Choose a city anywhere and do the research. And if you're not too sure what it means, send us an email anytime, and I'll give you a quick 5-minute analysis for no obligation. So.
Well, there you go. Nice way to end it off. Ray offering his evaluated experience. Can't get any better than that. Ray, want to say thank you as always for taking time out of your positive, productive schedule of being a father, being a leader, a mentor, and a trusted friend to myself and some others. Really appreciate everything that you do. And his contact information is there. There's a Canada phone number, U.S. phone number, toll-free North American number, website, the McMillan Group Inc.com, and email address, raycmcmillan@gmail.com. Again, Ray, thank you so much. As always, you and your family, make sure, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourselves grace. All right, Ray is off the docket. And Dr. Tati says, thanks, Ray. And also, Teach and Inspire says, thank you. Glad that you enjoyed the conversation, family. All right. So as we close up today, so a few things. Let me just get some things organized here. All right. So first things first, program alert. If you're watching this live on February 16th, 2024, in less than 38 minutes on the Dr. Vibe Show, if you're following me on any of the platforms, I'll have a conversation with Canada's Minister of Diversity, Kamal Khera. We'll be chatting for about 20-25 minutes. So if you're available, check it out. If not, you can catch it on the replay. Would love you to be there. And if you have time, ask some questions if you do. Next up, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Hit the notification button. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you want to support your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I host or are part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. Join the Morning Vibe Discord group. Please, would love you to put conversation topics, feedback, etc. there. So email me again, dr.vibe@the.drvibeshow.com. There's how you can get a hold of Ryan. His email address, Ryan Oneil Knight, LinkedIn, Ryan Oneil Knight, Instagram, ryan.knight99, and then email address, work with me at ryanoneilknight.com. Do we have anything else? You know what? I got to put up my own contact information. Don't you think? Here we go. There I am. Website, the drvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the Dr. Vibe Show. Instagram at the Dr. Vibe Show, and that's the drvibeshow.com, and X at drvibeshow. That's it. That's a wrap. And you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, Afro Caribbean Business Network, Facebook and YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight, YouTube and LinkedIn. All right, we got two more quick comments here, then we're going to call it. Karen Rose says, thank you, Ray. Ray says also, thanks to everyone who took time to join the conversation. Appreciate it. We appreciate you back, Ray. All right, so before we finish off, so Kamal Khera coming up 36 minutes. Then tomorrow night, Saturday, February 17th, 7 p.m., primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala, Manifa Brooks, co-owner of Garabyte Consulting, talking all things data privacy. Manifa has 15 years of data privacy experience. Yes, she's been on the Morning Vibe before, but you know what? I always want to help people score goals and get wins. So this one's not only going to be broadcast on these platforms, but also on the Fly Nubian Queen Network, which I'm a featured contributor of, that has 570,000 YouTube subscribers. So check that out. And then on Sunday, Black Canada Talking, myself and Cesar Nadima Musa will be there. So follow me. And a lot of those posts are up already. Tomorrow, this one at 11 o'clock coming up is there. Tomorrow night at 7 o'clock is there. And by tomorrow morning, probably Sunday will be up. So let's finish off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. If you're watching this live, have an outstanding weekend. We will see you on Monday with Robert Small. And next Friday, Perry Douglas. So God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good. Remember to give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Really important things these days. Peace.